Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Sports Business Network speaker series. And we have an amazing guest for you today. We have Ross Greenberg, the CEO and founder of Ross Greenberg Productions. Ross is also the former president of HBO Sports. And Ross is known for a lot of things. One is he won 51 Emmy Awards while at HBO and 8 Peabody Awards. He brought us programs like Real Sports, Inside the NFL, HBO Boxing, The Road to the Stanley Cup. And then my favorite of all time is Ross was the executive producer for Miracle, the movie. And Ross was also the person who did the documentary on Miracle about the 1980 Lake Placid men's hockey team. So Ross, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, Dave. Good to be here with you.
And I had to wear my Brown hat for you because Ross is a Brown graduate where he played football at Brown. So I had to make sure I was wearing my Brown hat for Ross today.
Well, I will tell you, Dave, I only played one day of football at Brown University and went into rugby and played golf there. So I didn't quite make it on the football team. But
I'm not sure.
I was there for the first Ivy League title. You know, all my friends were playing.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, were you around the same time as Brian Moynihan, who's the CEO of Bank of America? Because I know he was a rugby player.
Yeah, I kind of remember that name. He may have been a little bit after me. I was there with a great group. We won the Ivy title 2 years in a row, went to a national championship down in Baton Rouge. We had a good rugby team in those days.
Gotta love that. So, everything that we do with Sports Business Networks, it's all about, bringing people together, making connections, and also having people get real world advice from people who've done this before them. When you were coming out of Brown, and we wanted to talk about your career specifically, and, because we have people that might want to be getting into entertainment and sports and things like that. When you were coming out of Brown, did you have any idea what you truly wanted to do and what has led you to this path today?
Yeah, I sure did. I was exposed by Frank Gifford. His son and I played football together from third grade through high school, and we were very close friends. And so I got to know Frank Gifford very well. He was almost like a second father. And when I got out of Brown,
you want to tell people who Frank Gifford is, because we have some younger listeners who might not know who Frank is?
He was a great halfback, first for University of Southern California, and then for the New York Giants. Won an MVP award in 1956 and led them to some championships, and was one of the premier and pioneer broadcasters in football history. He was the longtime host of Monday Night Football, and in those days, Monday Night Football with Danny Don Meredith and Howard Cosell forged a new frontier for primetime sports television. And in those days, ABC Sports was even bigger than ESPN in many ways, because they basically had everything. They had not only Olympics, but the World Series, the Super Bowls, the NBA title, championship series. So they were
all the sports.
Yeah, they were everything. And I was exposed to Roone Arledge's way of thinking, and the fact that he wanted to get up close and personal with athletes' stories, and that kind of was ingrained in me from an early age. So when I got out of Brown, I tried to get a job at ABC Sports, but I couldn't. And I looked in a cable source book for anything else that was sports television. And in those days, there was ABC, NBC, and CBS. And I found Home Box Office. And in 1978, I got a job there, the second person hired in production at HBO in the sports department. And that was the beginning of a beautiful ride. And, I guess I rode that wave for 33 years and was president the last 11. Enjoyed the heck out of it. Then in 2011, time to leave, formed my own production company, and now I'm supplying programming for just about any network and streaming service that you can think of. So I think the one thing that's a constant, though, is that I loved telling stories about sports. And that's, I found platforms and created shows like Hard Knocks or Real Sports or Inside the NFL, or, all the shows that from my HBO days. And then a string of about 100 documentaries through the years, and the 24/7 platform. So the all access form of programming. So I constantly was looking to expand my ability to tell stories about athletes and teams, and as you said, even into feature films with Miracle and 61.
Yeah, I mean, you did an amazing job. I mean, for those people, I mean, there's a lot of people out there who love sports movies, and Miracle might be, one of their favorites. But you got to watch the documentary too, because I think the documentary is just so powerful.
Well, the documentary spawned the actual movie, because when I was making the documentary for HBO, I got Herb Brooks's rights because I knew it was a movie, but I got his rights to tell his life story for the movie Miracle. And then went into the HBO passed, and I went into the offices of Disney, and I pitched it as a movie, and they bought it within 30 seconds. But you're right. If you look at the documentary, you'll see that many of the scenes from the documentary ended up in the movie because, they were so dramatic. For instance, the one when they were in Norway playing in that exhibition game, and the lights were turned off, and he started doing his Herbies, and they had tied the game, and he was really ticked off at the team, and they were doing it with the lights turned off until they were almost dropping on the ice. That was originally, we found that for the documentary, but then it became a very big scene in the movie. So the movie is really structured around the documentary.
Sure. I mean, it's an unbelievable job. Obviously I love it. My kids have always watched it, loved it. And it's just one of those movies where if you're a sports fan, you got to love it. What are some other things that you're working on right now? I know you've done stuff with, both the NHL and the NFL recently. What are some of the things you're working on with them?
Well, right now, HBO Max is airing a documentary I just completed called Extra Innings from 9/11, about how baseball post 9/11 brought people back, not only in New York, but around the country. And that was a documentary that was near and dear to my heart. Sandy Montag called me and asked me if I would produce and direct it, and pulled in Joe Levine, who had helped me about 16 years ago on a similar docu. But we brought it all up to date, and we felt like it was one of the most compelling stories we'd ever done. I'm also working on a film on the 99ers. I had done it similar to Miracle. I had done a documentary on the Mia Hamm, Julie Foudy team that in 1999 won at the World Cup in Pasadena, beat China in the final in front of 93,000 people. And that entire tournament was a turning point for women's sports in America. It was the first time a team of women had been taken seriously as athletes in this country. And they were the pioneers for that. They were Title IX babies who had now been groomed for this effort, and they did it. And the rest is really history. 20 years later, the women today are riding the coattails of what they did in 1991 through 1999. So that's going to be a feature film now for Netflix, which I'm excited about. I have some other projects, one of which I can't even tell you because it's not announced yet. Another documentary series for Netflix is very exciting. And an ACC network documentary I'm doing right now called Hidden Dynasty on Anson Dorrance and 22 national championships by the University of North Carolina in women's soccer. And no one really knows about it other than soccer aficionados. So
Well, I know all about it because I had Anson Dorrance on the show last year, and it was an amazing opportunity to interview someone who I believe is the greatest coach that has ever lived. The amount of championships he's won, no one's even close to that. They talk about, John Wooden with basketball, and obviously being men's basketball and having NCAA championships and things like that. But when you have an individual who's won 21 national championships at the same school, it's just incredible.
Yeah. And you really have to add one more because the 22nd one was the first one, which they weren't even calling the NCAA Women's Championship because they hadn't titled it yet. The NCAA had not taken over women's sports at that point in 1981. So I'm going to give them the 22nd. They won 9 in a row, Dave. I mean, this is one of the great sports stories ever. And, a lot of illustrious names passed through those gates of North Carolina. And Anson Dorrance is really a special man.
Have you ever read the book Captain's Class?
No, I haven't.
It's a great book that basically they talk about, what makes a great captain. And part of what they did is they did studies into what makes the best teams ever. And they were looking at some of the captains on those best teams. But one of the teams that they didn't look at is they didn't look at college teams. So they didn't look at a John Wooden. They didn't look at an Anson Dorrance as, what was the difference because of the turnover amongst the teams. They really looked at, the professional teams. They looked at teams like the All Blacks and rugby, which was amazing. But I was always surprised that they didn't go into the college ranks to look at great coaches like an Anson Dorrance.
Of course. I mean, some of the best coaches in the history of all these sports come out of the college ranks. And the fact that there is a turnover every 4 years makes it even more special that they can continue to, win championships and do what they do at those universities, because there's a recruiting, as part of
constant recruiting.
Constantly. And that's taken for granted many times. So, when you look at the University of Alabama with Nick Saban, I mean, it's a constant every year. He's just got this influx of real talented, athletes. So anyway, I mean, sports is a beautiful platform for me telling stories, and they can only be told if there is something there. And, when you get the Anson Dorrances or the 80 hockey team or the 99 women's soccer team or what the events that happened after 9/11, all of these stories need to be told so people can learn from them and hold out some hope that there is something coming up that will further entice them and give them chills and, make them realize that sports is a beautiful vehicle and metaphor for life.
Well, listen, that's what Sports Business Networks is all about, is that, we are bringing together phenomenal athletes, both current college student athletes and alumni who all want to get together to connect on one platform. And that's exactly what we're doing, is getting people to connect. But a big part of it is all about career advancement. And career advancement is how are you getting into a career? And one of the things that we want to make sure of with these athletes is that they are getting into a career that they truly love. And a lot of kids are taking jobs right now because it's the first job available to them. They don't have any other offers, and they're not starting early enough to look into their passions and saying, how can I take my passion in what there are certain things in life that I love to do? How do I translate that into a job? So today with kids who are making documentaries on their iPhones and using technology and stuff, how are they getting a start in this business? And if you had any advice for someone who's an aspiring documentary maker or a filmmaker, what would you tell them?
I would tell them they have to put themselves in the right place at the right time. Everyone always says you have to be at the right place at the right time, or, jobs don't fall off trees, and it's not impossible to get one. But what you do is as you've said many times, follow your passion. If you love sports, if it's in your blood, if you think you have a talent at expressing yourself through this medium on the production side or on the business side, then you have to follow those dreams. You can't reach for those dreams if you don't follow them. And so, that's the most important interview. I always tell kids and people that the most important interview they'll ever have is with themselves. Before they meet with other people for other job opportunities, have an interview with yourself and ask yourself, what do I love to do? Where do I go on the internet? What drives me? What am I passionate about? And once you find out what your passion is and narrow it, like if you're in television, if you're thinking in terms of television, are you fascinated by programming? Are you fascinated by production and actually doing the film or the show? Are you fascinated by the marketing of those shows or the public relations of those shows? Really search your soul and kind of figure out what gets you going. And then you start making the contacts through your website, by the way, and your streaming service. And you actually, start to get to people that can help you maneuver the landscape and get those jobs. So, really search your soul and figure out what you want and what drives you. What area of sports drives you? Because certainly you're going to have a passion for sports if you're an athlete. I mean, how can you not? So that
Sure.
you figure out. If you want to make a career out of sports, you figured that out already. But now you got to narrow it. Is there one sport in particular? Some people I know love football so much they want to get into either being a part of a team or being a part of a league, and that's fine for them. If you're more of a generalist like me and you just look and want to choose the different storylines that fascinate you in sports and you pick production like I did, then you go that route. But there's no like book that you can read that will actually get you from here to there. You kind of have to follow your own instincts along the way. I was when my daughter and son were graduating in 2010, one of the presidents of the university, she went to Colgate, my daughter, and the president at the time said to a group of parents, I guess we were all there for parents weekend or something, and she said, your kids are going to change jobs an average of 11 times in their career. Now you're talking to a guy that spent 33 years at one company and now 10 years at my own company. So the thought of changing jobs 11 times is unbelievable. And now I'm tracking my son and daughter, and you know what? They're going to hit more than 11. And so, they have the opportunity to plot a path. And sometimes you do have to make moves in this new world we live in because everything's happening at such a quick pace
Sure.
that you have to look for the opportunity that's going to take you the next step in that drive to where you want to go. But connections are the key.
Well, when, you would talk.
Go ahead.
No, you were saying connections are the key.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, I watch my daughter. She's got this network in her world. She's in the nonprofit world. And I can't believe the network she's created. And every single job has been a building block of experience to get her to the place she wants to go. But it's amazing the network she's created. I'm a mentor to many kids, many people. And I have mentors. Attach yourself to good people along the way, people that care about you, and just keep the communication open and keep asking the questions that you need answered in order to pursue what you want to do in your career. That's really the key. Ask the questions of people you trust, and then set up that network, and someone's going to, over time, some mentor or someone is going to recommend you for a job that opens up. They're going to hear of a job and then they're going to recommend you for that job. But you have to build your resume, not by just putting down on a piece of paper some last job that you had, but really keep a portfolio of your work so that people can identify your talent, and that's the way you really progress. I'm afforded the opportunity that I can make television shows that people watch. So that's a lot easier, because that's my portfolio.
Sure.
If I like my stuff, then maybe I'll get the next opportunity somewhere else. So that's really what it's all about.
Well, it's very interesting, when, you coming out of college and, only having really 4 potential places to go, ABC, NBC, CBS, and the brand new HBO at the time. Now you have all of these streaming services that are getting into sports, whether it be Netflix or Hulu or Peacock or, all these different streaming services, they're getting into sports. So it doesn't just have to be about sports too. If you're into movies and documentaries, I love documentaries. I'll watch, any really good documentary, because you want a documentary that's going to touch you and that's going to hit home with you and say, wow, that was awesome. That was inspiring, or that was sad. And that was, I can't believe what someone has gone through. But it gives them the opportunities, I think, right now, where, traditionally, when I was the president of the Friends of Brown Lacrosse program, we would bring the lacrosse team down to Wall Street because everyone wanted to get jobs on Wall Street. That's not the case anymore. A lot of these kids are looking and saying, I want to get into, real estate, or I want to get into entertainment. And there are people like you out there who've really shown them the path of what the potential is if you do it the right way and you work hard at it.
That's right. And be patient, but also aggressive at the same time. When I say that, I don't mean hound someone for a job every day for 3 months. What I mean by that is be patient that it will come. Stick with it. I know it can be tough sometimes. People don't have the resources to stick with it and stay on the course to get a job in sports, but really, really try to. Because at the end of the day, you're going to land somewhere, you're going to grow in the field, and 10 years from now, you'll have a big smile on your face because when you go to work, you'll enjoy it and be inspired by it. I'm 66 years old. I've been at this over 40 years and I'm still loving it. I mean, who can say that? Most people are looking for that day of retirement, I'm still loving what I do and I'm inspired, and I'll watch rough cuts of the documentaries I do and get tears in my eyes. And I know it's important product that's meaningful to people. So just try to stay the course and hang in there, and just know that at the end of the day, you're going to land somewhere, and then you're going to grow after you get that first job. Perseverance and patience and drive. You just have to have all three and work hard. Don't slack off. It's a very fast-paced world out there. If you work hard, good things will happen.
That's one of the things that we're also, as part of the SBN, we're reaching out to Fortune 500 companies, HR directors, explaining to them why they should be hiring athletes because of all of the things that an athlete brings to the table, from teamwork to coachability to overcoming adversity, grit, following schedules, being part of a team, all those things that an athlete brings to the table. And those skill sets will absolutely benefit you in the corporate world, no matter what. And that's one of the things is when I was at Merrill Lynch, I would I think it was 99 out of 100, I would hire ex-athletes because I knew what I was getting with the framework. And as long as they're willing to work, just like if you wanted to be a starter on the rugby team or the football team, you had to work hard, just like anything in life. And I just said it, you have to be willing to work hard at it. And that's one of the ways that you can differentiate yourself as an athlete, is that you are willing to work hard.
That's it. That's one of the ways. I mean, you have to have some smarts, you have to have some intuition, and you have to have some creative juice if you're in my field. There's nothing, you're right. The analogies and metaphors for sports and work are very vivid. And one of those things is working your tail off, getting and doing that 20th wind sprint at your desk. When you need to get the job done and the work done, and you have a deadline, the game's coming up. Well, you know what? My shows are going to air and you're under the gun at the end of the day, and you have to get a group of people together. And I always think of myself as a head coach of a football team when I'm putting together a show. That's one of the analogies that's constantly in my head, and I want to be a Belichick. I don't want to be also ran Adam Gase. I want to make it happen.
Well, I know you've also done some documentaries on some amazing coaches, not just athletes. Like I love the piece that you did on Lombardi.
Yeah.
Um, have you done any other ones on coaches besides Lombardi?
Yeah, I did Dean Smith, for Showtime about 4 or 5 years ago. That was spectacular. We did the UCLA Dynasty, so we basically did Wooden. I mean, this Anson Dorrance project, this UNC North Carolina women's soccer project is mainly centered around him. I would also contend that Miracle was mostly, from Herb Brooks's perspective. So I've done quite a few things on coaches. Lombardi was one of my favorites because I felt like at the end of it, I felt like it was a documentary for anyone running a business. It wasn't even about football. It was the way he orchestrated the Green Bay Packers in those days was very special. And there were so many lessons out off the field as to how to run a business, the way he ran that business. But you always also have to point out the flaws. I mean, he had some difficulties because when you're that driven and that obsessed, sometimes you can, have some family issues. And he had a wife who was drinking too much, and he wasn't around enough. And so, you have to take the good with the bad.
Well, I think that's one of the things is, today in the world that we live in of instant gratification and kids wanting something right away. It's that hard work and patience that you're talking about that go a long way. But the other thing to realize is that life is not on an upward trajectory at all times. And that these different people are going through down times just like anyone else is. But it's the things that we're taught and the skills that we're taught to overcome those down times and to find out and learn from those lessons. And whether you get knocked down, get back up. But what did you learn when you did get knocked down?
Yeah. And why did you get knocked down? I mean, I've had my ups and downs, obviously, throughout my career. And you always run into some people that don't want the best for you. And, I heard a quote like about 3 weeks ago that has stuck with me ever since I heard it, and I'll use it for the rest of my life. It said, jealousy is like a poison that you drink hoping that someone else dies. And I love that quote.
Wow.
There's certain things that can get in the way of relationships, and this is for business or life, that you have to be aware of as you live your nice long life. And jealousy is one thing that can get in the way of good solid business judgment, and just the treatment of others, because over time I've noticed in my career that people that treated others badly ended up being in big trouble in their careers, because at the end of the day, when they lose that one job where they're in a powerful position and it doesn't matter whether they're nice to people or not, when that job's over, there's no one standing there to pick them back up. There's no one there to, if they have the talent, even if they have the talent, if they don't have any people that you can consider friends, then why should those business associates pick someone back up who was nasty to them for the first 25 years of their career? So, these are things you have to learn over time. Do unto others as they do unto you. That applies to everything. That's just not about walking down the street, living your life. That applies to business as well.
Yeah, I mean, the same thing. It's like, whether you're in a leadership role in business, like they say, be kind to the people on your way up the ladder, because you're going to need those same people when you're going back down the ladder.
That's the same issue. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. And so, it sounds like common sense, but you have to live it. You can't just hear it. You have to live that. And, business can be rough. I mean, there are going to be times when you run into conflicts and you run into issues. look for the ways to get through those issues in a nice way, you know. Don't do battle with people, because if you battle with people too intensely and you start to believe your own power in your own power, then you know you're going to fall and you're not going to be able to get back up, because there's going to be no one there to lend a hand to lift you by the arm and bring you back up.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of that now with people who were in charge of big companies or big government positions. You're seeing Governor Cuomo in New York, getting taken out because of how you treat people.
Right.
And so one thing I've always known about you is I always think that you are a good, kind person. And it shows with the people that you work with and the relationships that you have.
Yeah. And you know what I've found over the years now at the tender age of 66 is that I have the ability, because I have my own company and I can sell my own product to whoever I want, to not only work with people I really like, but also sell to people I really like. Because at the end of the day, I don't want to be selling a documentary to any network or anywhere that people are rough, you know. If they're rough on me in the process, then it affects the product, and and I can be fired. So I don't need that at my age. I don't, I've done enough work where if you don't like what I'm doing, let's not do it.
Right.
And so I've walked away from certain jobs because I've known that it wasn't going to end well. And there's been a couple of jobs where I should have walked away that didn't end well. So you learn from valuable lessons like that too.
Sure. I mean, it's funny, when I was at Merrill Lynch and I was a financial consultant, I had a very, very wealthy client. And she was a single woman, a lot of money, but she was a miserable person. And every Friday when she would call, she would either give me a load of crap, give my assistants a load of crap. And she was just very difficult to work with. And I remember the day that I made the decision to fire her and not work with her anymore. And I told my assistants that we were firing her and getting rid of her, and they were ecstatic. And that's when I realized it's like you want to surround yourself with people that you like and trust. And people want to do business with people they like and trust. And that's a big part of what we're doing with the network here at Sports Business Network, building a network of people that you can all connect with who already have the commonality of athletics with you. And it's people that you can like and trust immediately. It's not just some random network of people that you need to spend 6 months or a year to get to know. You can get to know someone pretty quickly when you start talking about athletics and what were your mutual experiences.
That's exactly right. I mean, sports has that way of being a common denominator. I've always looked at it since I got in the business as, pulling everyone together. A lot of the stories I do are stories in sports that have pulled the entire country together. So your site, what you're doing, is obvious that you can take the world of sports and connect people. The documentary I just finished on 9/11, it was about, getting people back to normal. And it was the fact that they could congregate at Shea Stadium or Yankee Stadium, and then that could be broadcast to millions of people around the country, that could give people a sense of normalcy coming out of 9/11. Well, you know what? We're right back there again. We're sitting here and, at the end, hopefully at the end of a pandemic, if everyone is smart enough to get their shots and we can get back to normal. But the fact is, sports may be one of the vehicles that bring us back together. Broadway just opened, right? But sports is this, in many ways, it's always been positioned as that form of entertainment that everyone loves, but the higher ups in every industry don't realize how powerful it is, right?
Sure.
And it's powerful because the passion people have for their team or their heroes, sports heroes, and also the love affair they have with their sports, the sports they love to watch, and
Well,
going
not only
to
that, but people are committing large sums of money to their
you.
passion. I just watched the opening game with the Las Vegas Raiders versus Baltimore Ravens, and
Right.
you see that Raider passionate fan base. They're one of the most passionate fan bases out there. Everything from people wearing their Raiders colors and spending money on tickets and merchandise and streaming services all around sports.
And by the way, how long have they been in Las Vegas? 2
Brand
years.
new.
Last year they couldn't even go, and now all of a sudden, bang, here they are, all wearing their Raider uniforms. So it's a fascinating form of entertainment. Never really been appreciated. In all my years in sports, it's been appreciated by those of us who have involved ourselves in it, but many of the higher ups, I even found it when I was at HBO for 33 years. I was always fighting for HBO Sports to get the attention it deserved as a vehicle within the organization, fighting for marketing money so we could herald the Magic versus Bird documentary we did, or, even the documentary we did on the 80 Olympics, which then turned into Miracle. I mean, I was always fighting for attention within the company to say, hey, people are loving this stuff. You should market it and make sure people are going to watch it, because they know about it. And so, but that's a never ending process. But I think we're getting to a point in this new kind of world we live in with all the streaming services and everything else, that it's getting a lot of attention. And we're seeing a new day, because now the viewers deciding what they want to watch, and they're going to what they want to watch. There's none of this time periods, and the word of mouth is so powerful in sports, and word of mouth is what you're going to live by with this site, that you're going to see an explosion in the next 10, 20 years. With sports as at the centerpiece of the vehicle that's going to drive a lot of the economy. It's funny.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, when you really think about, how big these global businesses are, and global sports, whether it be, people, you look at it, some of the athletes are in Formula One racing. And Formula One racing is huge, but it's really so much bigger outside the United States.
Right.
And, just like soccer is bigger outside the United States, or as they like to say, football, their football. But it's been amazing. Listen, Ross, I know you're busy. You're working on such big projects. So thank you so much for your time and stopping by. I have one last question for you.
Yes, sir.
Last question is, what's the best piece of advice you've ever gotten, and who gave it to you?
My father, Robert Greenberg. He had nothing to do with, he introduced me to sports in general, football and everything else. But he gave me the best advice I've ever had. I was frustrated. I was in my early 20s. I was not getting the job opportunity to start my career in sports and in television. And he said the following quote. He said, "Don't worry, Ross. The cream always rises to the top." So if you believe in yourself, and if you believe you have a certain talent, don't worry. Over time, if you're able to showcase it, the cream will rise to the top. So that was the best advice I think I ever heard. And that's one of the first times I've ever even said that publicly. Because usually you'd think it would come from, someone in the industry.
Right.
But that just shows you that the sports industry is very similar to every other industry. It's about the cream rising to the top, and your abilities kind of setting you apart from the rest.
Well, listen, Ross, thanks again. This has been awesome. I'm sure the viewers are going to love it. You shared so much insight and advice the entire time. So keep going. We look forward to, seeing some of your new stuff that's coming out. And for all the viewers out there, go check out some of Ross's stuff. Go watch the documentary on Miracle. Go watch Lombardi. These are all things that you can learn from because they're stories, and that's what it's all about. And we want to keep telling stories. Having great speakers like Ross is part of what we're going to keep up. So Ross Greenberg, thank you so much. And everyone, have a great day.
Okay, extra innings from Ground Zero from 9/11 is right on HBO Max, sitting there for you right now. Go watch it.
That'll be the next one I watch. Thanks so much, Ross.
All right, thanks.